Krishna, dear devotees, welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, right here in the live studios in Hythe, Kent, southeast England, just near the English Channel, where we are engaged in a yajna. You know, they used to have Vedic sacrifices, and they used to have yajnas. And at Naimisharanya, after they heard all the Puranas and the Itihasas and the Vedas, and it was 1,000-year yajna. And at the end, or sometime during, they came to the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and their yajnas were finished. All they wanted to do was to hear the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, because they realized that the Bhagavatam was the absolute truth. Śrīmad-Bhāgavata Mahima Stotram, from Sri Krishna Lila Stava, text 412 through 416, by Srila Sanatana Goswami. Goes like this. Sarva Shastra Dipiyusha, Sarva Vedayika Satpala, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya, Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Śrīmad-Bhāgavata Prabho, Kalidvandoditaditya, Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life heir of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Mad Mahadana Mad Nistadaga Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadutadayin atini chochata kada anamun chagadachin mam premna rit kantayospuda. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. The more and more we know about Krishna, the more we cannot help but falling in love with him. Chapter 61, the genealogy of the family of Krishna. Krishna had 16,108 wives, and in each of them he begot 10 sons, all of them equal to their father in the opulences of strength, beauty, wisdom, fame, wealth, and renunciation. Like father, like son. All the 16,108 wives of Krishna were princesses, and when each saw that Krishna was always present in her respective palace and did not leave home, she considered Krishna a hen-pecked husband who was very much attached to her. Every one of them thought that Krishna was her very obedient husband, but actually, Krishna had no attraction for any of them. Although each thought that she was the only wife of Krishna and was very, very dear to him, Lord Krishna, being Atma Rama, self-sufficient, felt neither attraction nor enmity toward any one of them. He was equal to all the wives and treated them as a perfect husband would, just to please them. For him, there was no need of even a single wife. In fact, since they were women, the wives could not understand the exalted position of Krishna, nor the truths about him. All the princesses who were wives of Krishna were exquisitely beautiful, and each of them was attracted by Krishna's eyes, which were just like lotus petals, and by his beautiful face, long arms, beautiful ears, pleasing smile, humorous talk, and sweet words. Influenced by these features of Krishna, they all used to dress themselves very attractively, desiring to attract him by their feminine bodily appeal. They exhibited their feminine characteristics by smiling and moving their eyebrows, thus shooting sharp arrows of conjugal love, just to awaken Krishna's lusty desires for them. Still, they could not arouse Krishna's mind or his sexual appetite. This means that Krishna never had any sexual relations with any of his many wives, save and except to beget children. The queens of Dwarka were so fortunate that they got Lord Sri Krishna as their husband and personal companion, although he is not approachable by exalted demigods like Lord Brahma. Lord Krishna and his queens remained together as husband and wife, and Krishna, as an ideal husband, treated them in such a way that at every moment there was an increase of transcendental bliss in their smiling, exchanges, talking, and mixing together. Each and every wife had hundreds and thousands of maidservants, yet when Krishna entered the palaces of his thousands of wives, each one of them used to receive Krishna personally by seating him in a nice chair, worshipping him with all requisite paraphernalia, personally washing his lotus feet, offering him betel nuts, massaging his legs to relieve them of fatigue, fanning him to make him comfortable, offering all kinds of scented sandalwood, pulp, oils, and aromatics, putting flower garlands on his neck, dressing his hair, getting him to lie down on the bed, and assisting him in taking his bath. Thus they served Krishna always, in every respect, especially when he was eating. They always engaged in the service of the Lord. Each of Krishna's 16,108 queens had 10 sons. The sons of the first 8 queens are listed as follows. By Rukmini, Krishna had the following 10 sons: Pradyumna, Charodeshna, Sudeshna, Charodeha, Sucharu, Charugupta, Bhadracharu, Charuchandra, Vicharu, and Charu. None of these were inferior in their qualities to their divine father, Lord Krishna. The names of Satyabhama's 10 sons are as follows: Bhanu, Subhanu, Swarbhanu, Prabhanu, Bhanuman, Chandrabhanu, Brihadbhanu, Atibhanu, Shribhanu, and Pratibhanu. The 10 sons of the next queen, Jambavati, were headed by Samba. Their names are as follows: Samba, Sumitra, Purujit, Shatajit, Sahasrajit, Vijaya, Chitraketu, Vasuman, Dravida, and Kratu. Lord Krishna was specifically very affectionate to the sons of Jambavati. The 10 sons Lord Krishna had by his wife Satya, the daughter of King Nagnajit, were as follows: Veera, Chandra, Ashwasena, Chitragu, Begavan, Vrisha, Ama, Shanku, Vasu, and Kunti. Amongst all of them, Kunti was very powerful. Krishna's 10 sons by Kalindi were as follows: Shruta, Kavi, Vrisha, Veera, Subahu, Bhadra, Shanti, Darsha, Purnamasa, and Somaka, the youngest son. The 10 sons Lord Krishna begat in his next wife, Lakshmana, the daughter of the king of Madras province, were named Pragosh, Gatravan, Singha, Bala, Prabala, Urdaga, Mahashakti, Saha, Oja, and Aparajita. The 10 sons of his next wife, Mitravinda, were as follows: Brika, Harsha, Anila, Gridra, Vardhana, Unada, Mahangsa, Pavana, Vani, and Chudi. The 10 sons of his next wife, Bhadra, were named Sangramajit, Brihatsena, Shura, Praharana, Arijit, Jaya, Subhadra, Vama, Ayur, and Sachaka. Besides these 8 chief queens, Krishna had 16,100 other wives, and all of them also had 10 sons each. The eldest son of Rukmini, Pradyumna, was married with Mayavati from his very birth, and afterwards he married Rukmavati, the daughter of his maternal uncle, Rukmi. From Rukmavati, Pradyumna had a son named Aniruddha. In this way, Krishna's family, Krishna and his wives, along with their sons and grandsons, and even great-grandsons, all combined together to include very nearly 1 billion family members. Quite a family reunion when they all got together, right? Rukmi, the elder brother of Krishna's first wife, Rukmini, was greatly harassed and insulted in his fight with Krishna, but on the request of Rukmini, his life was spared. Since then, Rukmi held a great grudge against Krishna and was always inimical toward him. Nevertheless, his daughter married Krishna's son, and his granddaughter married Krishna's grandson, Aniruddha. This fact appeared a little astonishing to Maharaj Parikshit when he heard it from Shukadeva Goswami, and the king addressed him as follows: I am surprised that Rukmi and Krishna, who were so greatly inimical to one another, could again be united by marital relationships between their descendants. Parikshit Maharaj was curious about the mystery of this incident, and therefore he inquired further from Shukadeva Goswami. Because Shukadeva Goswami was a perfect yogi, nothing was hidden from his power of insight. A perfect yogi, like Shukadeva Goswami, can see past, present, and future in all details. Therefore, from such yogis or mystics, nothing can be concealed. When Parikshit Maharaj inquired from Shukadeva Goswami, Shukadeva Goswami answered as follows: Pradyumna, the eldest son of Krishna, born of Rukmini, was Cupid himself. He was so beautiful and attractive that the daughter of Rukmi, namely Rukmavati, could not select any husband other than Pradyumna during her Swayamvara. Therefore, in that selection meeting, she garlanded Pradyumna in the presence of all the other princes. When there was a fight among the princes, Pradyumna came out victorious, and therefore Rukmi was obliged to offer his beautiful daughter to Pradyumna. Although enmity was always blazed in Rukmi's heart because of his having been insulted by Krishna's kidnapping of his sister, Rukmini, Rukmi could not resist consenting to the marriage ceremony just to please Rukmini when his daughter selected Pradyumna as her husband. And so Pradyumna became the son-in-law as well as the nephew of Rukmi. Besides the 10 sons described above, Rukmini had one beautiful daughter with big eyes, and she was married to Kritavarma's son, whose name was Bali. Although Rukmi was a veritable enemy of Krishna, he had great affection for his sister Rukmini and wanted to please her in all respects. On this account, when Rukmini's grandson Aniruddha was to be married, Rukmi offered his granddaughter Rochana to Aniruddha. Such a marriage between immediate cousins is not very much sanctioned by the Vedic culture. But in order to please Rukmini, Rukmi offered his daughter and granddaughter to the son and grandson of Krishna, respectively. In this way, when the negotiation of the marriage of Aniruddha and with Rochana was complete, a big marriage party accompanied Aniruddha and started from Dwarka. They traveled until they reached Bojakata, which Rukmi had colonized after his sister had been kidnapped by Krishna. This marriage party was led by the grandfather, namely Lord Krishna, accompanied by Lord Balarama, and it included Krishna's first wife, Rukmini, his son Pradyumna, Jambavati's son, Samba, and many other relatives and family members. They reached the town of Bojakata, and the marriage ceremony was peacefully performed. The king of Kalinga was a friend of Rukmi's and gave him the ill advice to play chess with Balaram, and thus defeat him in a bet. Among Kshatriya kings, gambling on chess was not uncommon. If someone challenged a Kshatriya to play on the chessboard, the Kshatriya could not refuse the challenge. Sri Balaramaji was not a very expert chess player, and this was known to the king of Kalinga. So Rukmi was advised to retaliate against the family members of Krishna by challenging Balarama to play chess. Although not an expert chess player, Sri Balaramaji was very enthusiastic in sporting activities. He accepted Rukmi's challenge and sat down to play. Betting was with gold coins, and Balarama first of all challenged with 100 coins, then 1,000 coins, then 10,000 coins. Each time Balarama lost, and Rukmi was victorious. Sri Balarama's losing the game was an opportunity for the king of Kalinga to criticize Krishna and Balarama. Thus the king of Kalinga was talking jokingly while purposefully showing his teeth to Balarama. Because Balarama was the loser in the game, he was a little intolerant of the sarcastic joking words and became somewhat agitated. Rukmi then challenged Balarama and made a bet of 100,000 gold coins. But fortunately, this time Balarama won. Nonetheless, out of cunningness, Rukmi claimed that Balaram was the loser and that he himself had won. Because of this lie, Balaramaji became most angry with Rukmi. His agitation was so sudden and great that it appeared like a tidal wave in the ocean on a full moon day. Balarama's eyes are naturally reddish, and when he became agitated and angry, his eyes became more reddish. This time he challenged and made a bet of 100 million coins. Again Balarama was the winner, according to the rules of chess. But Rukmi again cunningly claimed that he had won. Rukmi appealed to the princes present, and he especially mentioned the name of the king of Kalinga. During the dispute, there was a voice from the sky, and it announced that for all honest purposes, Balarama was the actual winner of this game, that he was being abused, and that the statement of Rukmi that he had won was absolutely false. We need a divine voice around here. In spite of this divine voice, Rukmi insisted that Balaram had lost, and by his persistence, it appeared that he had death upon his head. Falsely puffed up by the ill advice of his friend, he did not give much importance to the oracle, and he began to criticize Balaramji. He said, "My dear Balaramji, you two brothers, cowherd boys only, may be very expert in tending cows, but how can you be expert in playing chess or shooting arrows on the battlefield? These arts are well known only to the princely order." Hearing this kind of pinching talk by Rukmi, and hearing the loud laughter of all the other princes present there, Lord Balarama became as agitated as burning cinders. He immediately took his club in his hand, and without further talk, struck Rukmi on the head. From that one blow, Rukmi fell down immediately and was dead and gone. Thus Rukmi was killed by Balarama on that auspicious occasion of Aniruddha's marriage. These things are not very uncommon in Kshatriya society. The king of Kalinga, afraid that he would be the next one attacked, fled from the scene. Before he could escape even a few steps, however, Balaramaji immediately captured him, and because the king had always shown his teeth while criticizing Balarama and Krishna, Balarama broke all the king's teeth with his club. The other princes supporting the king of Kalinga and Rukmi were also captured, and Balarama beat them with his club, breaking their legs and hands. They did not try to retaliate, but thought it wise to run away from the bloody scene. During this strife between Balarama and Rukmi, Lord Krishna did not utter a word, for he knew that if he supported Balarama, Rukmini would be unhappy. And if he said that the killing of Rukmi was unjust, then Balarama would be unhappy. Therefore, Lord Krishna sat silent on the death of his brother-in-law, Rukmi, on the occasion of his grandson's marriage. He did not disturb his affectionate relationship with either Balarama or Rukmini. After this, the bride and bridegroom were ceremoniously seated on the chariot, and they started for Dwarka, accompanied by the bridegroom's party. The bridegroom's party was always protected by Lord Krishna, the killer of the Madhu demon. Thus, they left Rukmi's kingdom, Bhojakata, and happily started for Dwarka. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 61st chapter of Krishna, the genealogy of the family of Krishna. Okay, was a short chapter, and we started late. We've only been reading for about a half an hour. Chapter 62. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 61st chapter of Krishna, the genealogy of the family of Krishna. All glories to the family of Krishna, which when they had a reunion, they needed a whole bunch of space. Hare Krishna. 1 billion family members. Sri Krishna, the greatest of all. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol. Okay, now this chapter, hand me the book. I'm pretty sure this is a long chapter. '62 we're on already, huh? Imagine. 62. Short, we can do it. Short, we can do it. Chapter 62. The meeting of Usha and Aniruddha. The meeting of Aniruddha and Usha, which caused a great fight between Lord Krishna and Lord Shiva, is very mysterious and interesting. Maharaj Parikshit was eager to hear the whole story from Shukadeva Goswami, and thus Shukadeva narrated it. My dear king, you must have heard the name of King Bali. He was a great devotee who gave away in charity all that he had, namely the whole world, to Lord Vamana, the incarnation of Vishnu as a dwarf Brahmana. King Bali had 100 sons, and the eldest of all of them was Banasura. This great hero, Banasura, born of Maharaj Bali, was a great devotee of Lord Shiva and was always ready to render service unto him. Because of his devotion, Banasura achieved a great position in society, and he was honored in every respect. Actually, he was very intelligent and liberal also, and his activities are all praiseworthy because he never deviated from his promise and word of honor. He was very truthful and fixed in his vow. In those days, he was ruling over the city of Shonitapur. By the grace of Lord Shiva, Banasura had 1,000 arms, and he became so powerful that even demigods like King Indra were serving him most obediently. Long ago, when Lord Shiva was dancing in his celebrated fashion called Tandava Nritya, for which he is known as Nataraj, Banasura helped Lord Shiva in his dancing by rhythmically beating drums with his 1,000 hands. Lord Shiva is well known as Ashutosh, very easily pleased, and he is also very affectionate to his devotees. He is a great protector for persons who take shelter of him and is the master of all living entities in this material world. Being pleased with Banasura, he said, "Whatever you desire, you can have from me, for I am very much pleased with you." Banasura replied, "My dear Lord, if you please, you can remain in my city just to protect me from the hands of my enemies." Once upon a time, Banasura came to offer his respects to Lord Shiva. By touching the lotus feet of Lord Shiva with his helmet, which was shining like the sun globe, he offered his obeisances unto him. While offering his respectful obeisances, Banasura said, "My dear Lord, anyone who has not fulfilled his ambition will be able to do so by taking shelter of your lotus feet, which are just like a desire tree, from which one can take anything he desires. My dear Lord, you have given me 1,000 arms, but I do not know what to do with them. They are simply a burden. I cannot use them properly in fighting, since I cannot find anyone competent to fight with me except your Lordship, the original Father of the material world. Sometimes I feel a great tendency to fight with my arms, and I go out to find a suitable warrior. Unfortunately, everyone flees, knowing my extraordinary power. Being baffled at not finding a match, I satisfy the itching of my arms by beating them against the mountains. In this way, I tear many great mountains to pieces." Lord Shiva realized that his benediction had become troublesome for Banasura and addressed him, "You rascal, you are very eager to fight, but since you have no one to fight with, you are distressed. Although you think that there is no one in the world to oppose you except me, I say that you will eventually find such a competent person. At that time, your days will come to an end, and your flag of victory will no longer fly. Then you will see your false prestige smashed to pieces." After hearing Lord Shiva's statement, Banasura, who was very much puffed up with his power, became elated that he would meet someone able to smash him to pieces. Banasura then returned home with great pleasure, and he always waited for the day when a suitable fighter would come to cut down his strength. He was such a foolish demon. It appears that foolish demoniac human beings, when unnecessarily overpowered with material opulences, want to exhibit these opulences, and such foolish people feel satisfaction when these opulences are exhausted. The idea is that they do not know how to expand their energy for right causes, being unaware of the benefit of Krishna consciousness. Actually, there are two classes of men. One is called Krishna conscious, the other is non-Krishna conscious. The non-Krishna conscious men are generally devoted to the demigods, whereas the Krishna conscious men are devoted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna conscious persons utilize everything for the service of the Lord. The non-Krishna conscious persons utilize everything for sense gratification. And Banasura is a perfect example of such a person. For his own satisfaction, he was very eager to utilize his extraordinary power to fight. Not finding any combatant, he struck his powerful arms against the mountains, breaking them to pieces. In contrast to this, Arjuna also possessed extraordinary powers for fighting, but he utilized them only for Krishna. Banasura had a very beautiful daughter whose name was Usha. When she had attained the age of marriage and was sleeping amongst her many girlfriends, she dreamt one night that Aniruddha was by her side and that she was enjoying a conjugal relationship with him, although she had never actually seen him or heard of him before. She awoke from her dream, exclaiming very loudly, "My dear beloved, where are you?" Being exposed to her friends in this way, she became a little bit ashamed. One of Ushanu's friends was Chitralekha, who was the daughter of Banasura's prime minister. Chitralekha and Usha were intimate friends, and out of great curiosity, Chitralekha asked, "My dear beautiful princess, as yet you are not married to any young boy, nor have you seen any boys until now. So I am surprised that you are exclaiming like this. Who are you searching after? Who is your suitable match?" On hearing Chitralekha's inquiries, Usha replied, "My dear friend, in my dream I saw a nice young man who was very, very beautiful. His complexion was swarthy. His eyes are just like lotus petals, and he is dressed in yellow garments. His arms are very long, and his general bodily features are so pleasing that any young girl would feel attracted. I feel much pride in saying that this beautiful young man was kissing me, and I was very much enjoying the nectar of his kisses. But I am sorry to inform you that just after this he disappeared, and I have been thrown into the whirlpool of disappointment. My dear friend, I am very anxious to find this wonderful young man, the desired lord of my heart." After hearing Usha's words, Chitralekha immediately replied, "I can understand your bereavement, and I assure you that if this boy is within these three worlds, upper, middle, and lower planetary systems, I must find him for your satisfaction. Now, let me draw some pictures for you to inspect, and as soon as you find the picture of your desired husband, let me know. It doesn't matter where he is. I know the art of bringing him here. So as soon as you identify him, I shall immediately arrange for it." Chitralekha, while talking, began to draw many pictures of the demigods inhabiting the higher planetary systems, then pictures of the Gandharvas, Siddhas, Charanas, Panagas, Daityas, Vidyadharas, and Yakshas, as well as many pictures of human beings. The statements of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and other Vedic literatures prove definitely that on each and every planet there are living entities of different varieties. Therefore it is foolish to assert that there are no living entities but those on this earth. Chitralekha drew many pictures. Among the human beings she drew were members of the Vishnu dynasty, including Vyāsadeva, the father of Kṛṣṇa, Shurasena, the grandfather of Krishna, Sri Balaramaji, Lord Krishna, and many others. When Usha saw the picture of Pradyumna, she became a little bashful. But when she saw the picture of Aniruddha, she became so bashful that she immediately lowered her head and smiled, having found the man she was seeking. She identified the picture to Chitralekha as that of the man who had stolen her heart. Chitralekha was a great mystic yogini, and as soon as Usha identified the picture, Chitralekha could immediately understand that it was of Aniruddha, the grandson of Krishna, although neither she nor Usha had previously known his name or ever seen him. That very night, she traveled in outer space and within a very short time reached the city of Dwarka, which was very well protected by Lord Krishna. She entered the palace and found Aniruddha sleeping in his bedroom on a very opulent bed. Chitralekha, by her mystic power, immediately brought Aniruddha in that sleeping condition to the city of Shonitapur, so that Usha might see her desired husband. Usha immediately bloomed in happiness and began to enjoy the company of Aniruddha with great satisfaction. The palace in which Usha and Chitralekha lived was so well fortified that it was impossible for any male to either enter or see inside. Usha and Aniruddha lived together in the palace, and day after day, Usha's love for Aniruddha grew 4 times upon 4. Usha pleased Aniruddha with valuable garments, flowers, garlands, scents, and incense. By his bedside sitting place were other paraphernalia for residential purposes, such as nice drinks such as milk and sherbet, and nice eatables which could be chewed or swallowed. Above all, she pleased him with sweet words and a very obliging service. Usha worshipped Aniruddha as if he were the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By her excellent service, Usha made Aniruddha forget all other things and was able to draw his attention and love to her without deviation. In such an atmosphere of love and service, Aniruddha practically forgot himself and could not recall how many days he had been away from his real house, his real home. In course of time, Usha exhibited some bodily symptoms by which it could be understood that she was having intercourse with a male friend. The symptoms were so prominent that her actions could no longer be concealed from anyone. Usha was always cheerful in the association of Aniruddha, and she did not know the bounds of her satisfaction. The housekeeper and the guards of the palace could guess very easily that she was having relations with a male friend, and without waiting for further developments, all of them informed their master, Banasura. In the Vedic culture, an unmarried girl having association with a male is the greatest disgrace to the family, and so the caretakers cautiously informed their master that Usha was showing symptoms indicating a disgraceful association. The servants informed their master that they were not at all neglectful in guarding the house, being alert day and night against any young man who might enter. They were so careful that a male could not even see what was going on there, and so they were surprised that she had become contaminated. Since they could not trace out the reason for it, they submitted the whole situation before their master. Banasura was shocked to understand that his daughter, Usha, was no longer a virgin maiden. This weighed heavily on his heart, and without delay he rushed toward the palace where Usha was living. There he saw that Usha and Aniruddha were sitting together and talking. They looked very beautiful together, Aniruddha being the son of Pradyumna, who was Cupid himself. Banasura saw his daughter and Aniruddha as a suitable match, yet for family prestige, he did not like the combination at all. Banasura could not understand who the boy actually was. He appreciated the fact that Usha could not have selected anyone in the 3 worlds more beautiful. Aniruddha's complexion was brilliant and swarthy. He was dressed in yellow garments, and he had eyes just like lotus petals. His arms were very long, and he had nice, curling, bluish hair. The glaring rays of his glittering earrings and the beautiful smile on his lips were certainly captivating. Still, Banasura was very angry. When Banasura saw him, Aniruddha was engaged in playing with Usha. Aniruddha was nicely dressed, and Usha had garlanded him with various beautiful flowers. The reddish kumkum powder put on the breasts of women was spotted here and there on the garland, indicating that Usha had embraced him. Manasura was struck with wonder that even in his presence, Aniruddha was peacefully sitting in front of Usha. Aniruddha knew, however, that his would-be father-in-law was not at all pleased and that he was gathering many soldiers in the palace to attack him. Thus, not finding any other weapon, Aniruddha took hold of a big iron rod and stood up before Manasura and his soldiers. He firmly took a posture indicating that if attacked, he would strike all of the soldiers down to the ground with the iron rod. Manasura and his company of soldiers saw that the boy was standing before them just like the superintendent of death with his invincible rod. Now, under the order of Manasura, the soldiers from all sides attempted to capture and arrest him. When they dared come before him, Aniruddha struck them with the rod, breaking their heads, legs, arms, and thighs, and one after another they fell to the ground. He killed them just as the leader of a pack of boars kills barking dogs, one after another. In this way, Aniruddha was able to escape the palace. Manasura knew various arts of fighting, and by the grace of Lord Shiva, he knew how to arrest his enemy by the use of a Naga Pasha, snake noose. And thus he seized Aniruddha as he came out of the palace. When Usha received the news that her father had arrested Aniruddha, she was overwhelmed with grief and confusion. Tears glided from her eyes, and being unable to check herself, she began to cry very loudly. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 62nd chapter of Krishna, the meeting of Usha and Aniruddha. Hare Krishna, all glories to the mystic power of Chitraleka. All glories to Aniruddha, and all glories to Usha. Hare Krishna, Hare Bol, Hare Bol. So we're up to 8:10, and we'll stop here, our daily readings, and pray to the devotees for their reflections and discussions on these excellent chapters of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Hare Krishna.
First, here is a comment from Gopakanya Devi Dasi.
Hare Krishna, Gopakanya Devi Dasi.
She says, Jai Maharaj, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to your daily reading service of Śrīla Prabhupāda's books, and all glories to Śrīla Prabhupāda.
Jai, all glories to Prabhupada.
Rati Manjari says, Jai Guru Maharaj.
Jai Rati.
Saloni Sachi Sundari says, Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
From Maharani Vrindadevi Dasi.
Hare Krishna. Maharani Vrindadevi Dasi, what a nice name.
She says, Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj, please accept my most humble obeisances at your lotus feet. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupada.
All glories to Prabhupada.
She also commented, OMG, oh my God, do we have to know all the names of all his sons?
No, I don't happen to know all his names of all his sons. You don't have to know them, but just like everyone has a natural tendency to want to know who their family members are in their genealogical table. Krishna just happens to be the unlimited personality of Godhead, so he has more than anybody. No, we don't have to know them, but over time, if you keep reading and keep reading and keep reading over a lifetime, you may become familiar with many of them. It's natural. You may want to become their family members. It's natural.
She also wrote Jai Balaram.
Jai Balaram.
Sudevi Dasi says Hari Bol.
Haribol Sudevi Dasi.
Maharani Vrindadevi Dasi also wrote, thank you so much, dear Maharaj, so kindly to read to us.
Well, you know, they say the pleasure is all mine. Because it's so ecstatic to read these pastimes. And when I hear my own voice in the pastimes in my own ears, it's just, like I said, like I always say, it's mystical. It gives a mystic happiness.
Daityari Haridas.
Daityari Haridas, Haribol.
He says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances.
Jai, glories to Prabhupada.
All glories to Śrīla Prabhupāda. From Anandamurti Devi Dasi.
Hare Krishna Anandamurti.
He says, Jai Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupāda.
Jai, all glories to Prabhupada.
Thank you so much for today's reading of Krishna book. Bhakta Rupa. He says, thank you for reading, Maharaj. Maharani Vrindadevi Dasi says, Hare Krishna, thank you so much.
Haribol. Okay, not so much reflections from these wonderful kind of romantic stories. Hare Krishna. Someone else?
Something just came from Rati Manjari.
Haribol Rati.
She says, Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances.
Jai Ho.
I have a question. It was said that the sons of Krishna were equal to him in all the opulences. Does this mean that they were expansions of him? I have heard before that demigods incarnated in the Yadu dynasty. Could you please elaborate on this?
It means that they're eternal associates of Krishna, and that their forms are made of the same energy that Krishna's forms are made of. That's what it means. They have spiritual bodies. Whether or not some of them were demigods or not, I'm not so sure on all those details. I don't even know all their names, as I mentioned before, and I haven't done that kind of research. But the eternal associates of Krishna and their family members in Dwarka have spiritual bodies. Some of them may be coming up from the material world. That I don't know. I've never heard which are which. I don't know. But the fact that they were equal to Krishna means not that they were Krishna or expansions full Vishnu expansions, but it means that their bodies are spiritual, of the same spiritual quality as Krishna. The whole spiritual world, including the bodies of all the residents of the spiritual world, have the same bodily construction of Krishna in terms of the energy that they're made of. Hare Krishna.
Rati Manjari says, thank you, Guru Maharaj. And from Daityari Haridas, he says, really interesting point Prabhupada makes of the different psychology of demons compared to devotees, when he says, explaining that demons don't know how to utilize their energy properly and become overburdened by their strength and need to discharge it to exhaustion, whereas a devotee uses everything properly in Krishna's service.
Yes, and their energy increases. Their energies and their happiness expand because they're always in association with Krishna, in affection. Shri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ki Jai. Samabeta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. We'll see you tomorrow night, same time, same place. We'll have some guests maybe. The traveling party of Gopal Mori and from Wales, maybe with us. So let's see. Hare Krishna.